Rotted Reviews, and my question to you right now is, have you seen the show Inside Number 9? If you live in the US, you may be missing out. This is a British show, and a lot of folks in America have never even heard of it. Or maybe you have heard of it, but you haven't actually watched any episodes yet. Either way, it is definitely missing out if this one has escaped your eyes. You see, this video is devoted to one particular episode that was put on my plate as a rotted request from patron Nikki, who wanted me to watch and review the Christmas special episode, The Devil of Christmas. Nikki's reasoning for this is the very first Inside Number 9 Christmas special, and it is very well done. It is clear that the Inside Number 9 team are lovers of classic kitsch British horror of the 60s and 70s. This is an homage to that era. It is typical in Inside Number 9, but a great horror treat. Enjoy. So I have seen some episodes of the show, and the best way I can really describe it is it's almost like Black Mirror, but with a little bit more levity, a little bit less sometimes seriousness, and at the very least, even if it is serious, it doesn't necessarily inspire the same philosophical depression that Black Mirror does, but it does tackle some complex issues, and sometimes does so with a sense of cheek and humor, and sometimes does so under the lens firmly in the horror category. Every episode is a unique story to tell, and the one binding element is that whatever it's happening, it's taking place in somewhere of the number 9. So it may be a house with an address of 9, it may be an apartment with the address of 9, it may be anywhere as long as it's inside number 9. And in this particular instance, it is set in cabin number 9, where a family goes to stay for a remote holiday, and it all starts out feeling very 1970s movie of the week, horror classic kind of British cinema. So immediately I was getting kind of drawn into what Nikki was saying about this being an homage to a lot of those films, or at the very least the made-for-television serials that were along those lines, Hammer, House of Horror, things like that. You had the film grain, you had the 4:3 aspect ratio, and so on. And then we started to kind of get introduced to a different concept as this teleplay started really unfolding, where we heard voices over top of the actual scenes that were taking place, rewinding the scenes and so on, and just generally discussing them. And it dawned on me that we were watching not just kind of a movie of the week teleplay inspired thing, but we were watching almost a commentary track over top of that, as the director of this particular episode within an episode is discussing the filming process of what they are watching in tandem with us, the audience.
Your father went to a lot of trouble to book this holiday. You really oughtn't to be so ungrateful.
Nancy there, looking for her mark. Her eyes were going by this stage, bless her.
So this was a really kind of unique, interesting aspect and perspective to employ here. And the one thing that I kept kind of wondering as the entire thing went on was, what element of this is horror? Because that's the kind of unusual shift that will sometimes happen, is when we get taken out of the teleplay, which is very kind of an obvious horror setup where the family sees a portrait of Krampus on the wall, as the local that was there to greet them with some wine and so forth introduces them to the tale of Krampus and the rules that they must follow and so on. You just know that it's going to be the fairly standard fare of them breaking the rules and then earning Krampus's wrath and so on. But we're not watching this family in a remote village. We are watching a director talking about the filming of this. So without being audience members watching the scene unfold of this family, but rather watching the scene unfold as these actors are going through the motions and how they may have had a bad day interacting with one another in that particular moment, or we had to have a crew member scuttle around just off the camera view to move a painting real quick to fix something that the set designers missed. If we're watching the production of this, then where is the horror coming into play? And I don't want to give any spoilers. I don't want to give the whole game away, but what I will say is that this does have a very satisfying conclusion that had me grinning from ear to ear. All my questions were answered thoroughly, and what a delight this entire thing was on so many different levels. There is a big part of me that does love a lot of the movies that this was clearly taking inspiration from, or at the very least, the shows that this was taking inspiration from. I do enjoy the Hammer House of Horrors. One of my great joys of having the Rotted Requester line open is Nikki recommending the classic 60s and 70s British under the radar kind of horror movies to me. Great British horror classics like Whistle and I'll Come to You. Wonderful entries that I am happy to delve into, and born from my love of those vintage titles and those made-for-TV movies is also my love of the modern takes on them that want to pay homage to those classics. So The Devil of Christmas only being 29 minutes long is not much of an ask in terms of watch time. And considering that it's paying homage to some of the classics that I love, considering that it's also taking the concept and twisting it completely on its head in a really fascinating, multi-layered meta way, and is also just a great entry in a show that I already love, this is one that I just cannot help but highly recommend. To the highest degree possible do I recommend this. If you can find a copy of Inside Number 9, this is Season 3, Episode 1, and it is a fantastic watch that I just completely, fully, heartily recommend. So thank you very much to Nikki for putting this one on my radar. I loved every minute of it, and thank you out there for watching this video. If you did like it, the best way you can support me is to share my content, and the second best way is to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a very Merry Christmas if I don't see you until then, and remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.